5 points in the darkness make a different kind of show. They say we're better together, but what do they know when the stars align differently down here below? And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Remember all the stories that your granddad told about a republic that wouldn't be controlled. Now the suits in the city say we've all been sold, but there's a fire burning that just won't get old. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. They draw their lines on paper, we draw ours in the sand. Some dreams are getting closer, while some don't understand. Don't understand. The highway stretched forever toward a setting sun, where cattle graze on memories of battles won. They say unity's the answer, but maybe we're done with playing by the rules of the chosen ones. Oh, maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Our own sky. Our own sky.
Well, good evening, everyone. Hang on, let me get a sip of this real quick. Before we get started, good evening. Welcome back to Late Night Coffee Talk. Right? I don't know. Does it feel like we kicked off a little bit early? It sure feels like it to me. Anyway, look, thank you guys so much for being here. This is our regularly scheduled coffee talk night, but obviously, I think after the events of yesterday, we're gonna have to have a conversation tonight. There are a lot of people out there thinking a lot of thoughts, and I want to have that dialogue with you tonight. But before I get started, let me just go ahead and handle all the normal business, right? For those of you who don't know what's going on, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement, and this is Late Night Coffee Talk. This is that time once a week where I take a break from working on Texas independence. I come in here and I fire up the camera, the microphone, pour yet another cup of coffee, and I take your questions. We have like I said, we have a conversation, and tonight is going to be no different. Let's start with how you can ask those questions, right? So if you are watching on YouTube, you can go drop your questions in chat. And while you're there, be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. Of course, super chats are active as well. And while you're over there, go ahead and snag a YouTube channel membership. All of those things go toward helping us continue to get the word out to everyone. And, drop your questions in the chat. Like I said, if you're watching us on Facebook, just drop your questions in the comments on this video. Be sure to like and share. And if you're watching on X, you got the video up. There's a chat box. Drop your question in there. And, of course, as of late, recently, I guess 3 weeks ago or so, 4 weeks maybe, we're doing questions on Rumble too. Yeah, all that integration's done. So be sure to, if you're watching on Rumble, be sure to drop your question in the chat there. Additionally, if you don't want to do any of those things, I think it should be getting close to the bottom on the ticker there somewhere. You'll see an email address, coffeetalk@thetnm.org. You drop your questions via email there, as many of you did when you got the email notification today, inviting you to be here with us tonight. Now, look, you don't have to get an email invitation. You don't have to get a TNM social push notification to know that we're going to be here, right? Unless something happens like happened a couple of weeks ago, we'll be here every single week at this same time. So go ahead and put it in your calendar, right? You can always go find us on, our YouTube channel, right? So if you don't get a message, you don't get a link, don't get a notification, just know Thursday, 8 p.m., unless otherwise specified, just come to wherever you're watching right now, and we will be live taking your questions. And, of course, tonight we're going to do not just your questions. I want you guys to be able to throw your comments out there as well. Throw them in the chat. Let us know what's on your mind, what you're thinking. As I said, a lot of people watched something horrific happen yesterday, and I'm sure, as I've heard from many of you, you're making connections to what we do in your minds. You're grieving for a widow and a couple of kids that lost their dad. You watched a political assassination unfold in real time across social media, and in a very graphic way. But you can expect more of that, right? As the proliferation of, everybody has a camera in their hands these days. And so you're going to see more and more of those sorts of things if things don't change. And I think that's what I want to talk about tonight. Kara and I have had a lot of conversations about what transpired yesterday, as we do when these sorts of things happen. And I can tell you, it is a rare thing for it to be so high profile here, but political violence has been escalating. It has been escalating for a long time now. And it's something that we've been warning about. Look, I can, I've already looked at some of the emails that came in, and, I saw somebody talking about, this is people pushing us to civil war. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you're not, trying to give me links to other people saying the crap that we've been saying for years, right? That this is where this is pushing to. I had conversations with other people in the self-determination space. Obviously, since what happened to Charlie Kirk happened yesterday, and we don't delight in saying "told you so," especially when it's like it is now. But guys, if you want to understand why we take this fight for Texas independence so seriously, you could just pull that one line out. If you want to go back in the archives for the Texas News podcast, or there's an article about it on the Texian Partisan. There's a letter that I quote from that I came across. Actually, the book is sitting right over there right now. But it was that letter from the Committee of Safety in Liberty, Texas, to the convention, kind of an open letter to the people of Texas during the Texas Revolution, right after the Battle of Gonzales. And, I'm not going to go through the whole letter again. You guys have heard it ad nauseum, but is one line in there that I want you guys to really think about, especially if you've been sort of involved in what we're doing for any length of time whatsoever, or you have had a visceral or negative reaction to how hard we have pushed on this issue. And it's this: there is danger in delay, right? And I think that some people may have thought that quote unquote, when we talked about that quote unquote danger in delay, they thought we were being hyperbolic. We were being impatient, whatever it is. But yesterday, you got I think a real sense, I think everyone did, right, that there is danger in delay, right? There is a danger in allowing the alleged status quo to continue. Our push for independence is urgent. You got a glimpse yesterday of what the world is going to look like if we continue to stay shackled to this Titanic. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, there's I can think of 2 podcast episodes in the last 18 months that I did warning about an impending civil war if things don't change, if we don't push to be the adults in the room and gain our independence. Guys, there are 2 diametrically opposed ideologies that are trying to wrest the reins of power in Washington, D.C. And if they can't get it, they will fight it in the streets. There's one side of this thing that hates people like us. And it's, it worries us. I can't help but look at that video and knowing the sort of hate that people have expressed for what we do, right? Just the utter vile communications that we get from people, the things they say, the demonization that we have gotten over time from people honestly wearing both the R and the D jersey, by the way. I can't help but look at that and see, me at an event, right? I mean, and this is the same conversation that everybody that's in the public that has a view that is not that neo-Marxist, Maoist kind of nonsense, that's the kind of conversation. Look, I heard Tim Pool have the conversation. I've heard all these other commentators having the same conversation, and I'm not a commentator, right? I do this and have podcasts, but I'm not one of those people. But, there is a reason. Many of you that have caught me out there on the road have seen that I rarely travel without security, at least one person assigned to me, and oftentimes more than one. And now maybe you understand. And I will tell you, that's not something that I asked for. That's something that people in the organization have insisted that I have, because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm on borrowed time anyway, right? I didn't expect to make it out of my 30s. Charlie Kirk made it to an age that I thought that I would never attain. But, maybe if I knew that I would, that I was going to live out of my 30s, maybe I would have taken better care of myself. But, the point here is that we're in a time where standing up and having beliefs and speaking truth to power and, not compromising our principles, standing up for just fundamental common sense things. It is, a dangerous proposition for people that are hanging themselves out there publicly. Now, those of you out there that are volunteers, that are local leaders, take precautions, but I don't think you have that sort of thing to fear. They didn't go after Turning Point USA chapter leaders, right? They went because they thought they could cut the head off of the snake and the rest would die. By any definition, friends, that's terrorism. And we do not repay like for like. We do not believe in the use of force or violence to initiate political change. That is the textbook definition of terrorism. But the opposition does, and they have no qualms about it. They have absolutely no. The mask is off. They've ripped the mask off. Not that it was really fully seated anyway, but they hate people like us. So be careful, protect yourself. If you don't know or don't have a means of protection, then get one, right? I'm perfectly willing to give my life for this, but I don't expect any of you to. I expect you to live your life for this. But at the end of the day, I think we really all need to have this conversation tonight, and I'm looking forward to getting into the questions. As you can see, I didn't come prepared. I don't have any remarks or notes. What you're getting here is just sort of raw. This raw feeling. We really did not have a lot in common with Turning Point USA, right? It's not like I was, like a lot of these other guys, personal friends with Charlie Kirk. He was trying to execute what is ostensibly a laudable goal, which is to try to turn around the decay and decline of an institution called the United States. And frankly, folks, that institution that we're being forced to live under pushed back, and it's horrific. It's horrible. And not just, and I don't mean just the act of this particular shooter, right? I mean, that was horrible. But the reactions that we have seen from the people who sympathize and encourage, understand that is the hate that they have for people like us. Look, I believe in repentance. I would pray that the shooter and all of those people that are saying those hateful things repent. No one is beyond repentance and redemption. It's a fact. Paul, after literally martyring and murdering Christians, he became like the author of about half of the New Testament, right? When he saw that people were willing to give their lives for the gospel, for what they believed, for their faith, for what they knew to be in their hearts, the truth. And so I don't think anyone is beyond redemption. I think repentance is a possibility for all of those people. But at the end of the day, if the greatest commandment is to love thy neighbor as thyself, then we do a disservice to our fellow Texans, our fellow neighbors, our brothers, our countrymen, if we do not face evil square on and work to defeat that evil. And so it is a dereliction of duty for us not to confront and tamp down evil. And so that, I'm sure that will elicit some conversations and probably some hate mail, but I just don't care. I have to speak the truth as it is, and that is the truth. All right, let's get to some of your questions and comments. This is from Manny. He did a super chat. Thank you for that, Manny. He says, please be careful. We both wish that we live closer so we can provide full-time security for you all the time. God bless you both for everything that you do. We are already winning. Manny, I appreciate that. You and Debbie are very close and near and dear to our hearts. I don't think about these sorts of things. I drove, for many of you, Dan Armour, God rest his soul, who was the head of our protective services for, really since we instituted the department. And he was more than a friend to me. He fit this weird middle ground somewhere between, as I said at his memorial, somewhere between a brother and a father. But I drove Dan nuts all the time because I would wander off. Not in a President Biden sense of wandering off. I wasn't trying to shake hands with a flag, but and at some point he's like, "What, you don't care? You're not." It's like, no, I just, you guys want to keep me safe, but I'm not worried about it, right? I know what happens on the other side of this life, right? If you die before you die, then when you die, you do not die. So, but I appreciate that, Manny, and thank you so much for your super chat. Okay. Yes. Yeah, I'm seeing some comments. Daphne's reinforcing the fact that, yes, indeed, I did wander off, and Nate is expressing that he misses Dan, and I do too. It's been 2 years since he left us. So, yeah, I miss him every day. Okay, so let's go to the emails, and be sure to drop your questions and your comments in the chat wherever you're watching this, so we can talk about the things that are on your mind and what your thoughts are tonight. Bruce says, he says, folks on our side don't seem to realize we are witnessing a survival reaction. My opinion is the traders are perceiving that they are being backed in a corner. What do most living things do when they're up against the wall of survival? That said, we need to be critically aware of this evolving hazard. Stay alert all the time. Stay armed all the time. Thanks for what you do. No, Bruce, thank you for your support. Look, excuse me. Bruce, what you're saying is very true. The opposition is backed into a corner. Look, I said this and people thought I was nuts almost 2 years ago, maybe more, that the globalists are back on their heels. They are realizing that their dream of a global central power, this central planning, this consolidation, the globalists are losing. And, you know, they at that stage, they do probably some of the most horrific things they can do. They're basically trying to throw Hail Marys or run flea flicker plays all they can to try to, you know, maybe regain a foothold or change the momentum. And ultimately, chaos is their friend. They feel like they can step in. But look, I think that we may be at a point where the globalists are no longer content playing behind the shadows. I think they are just fangs out, and they're totally cool with it, right? They are doing in the open what they have done in secret for a very long time, and I don't think they care who knows. You know, we could actually address this along a whole spectrum of activities, but you know, look, the open assassination of Charlie Kirk is one of those. And I'm not here, before people start sending me hate mail or I get a bunch of crappy comments, I'm not advocating here that there is some grand conspiracy. I'm not. Was there? I don't know. I don't know that we will ever know. But has there been a systemic move toward the demonization of people like Charlie Kirk and people like us, whether consciously or unconsciously? And the answer is yes. You know, it was interesting to hear all the different things that people had said about Charlie Kirk, and realize that those things had all been said about us, right? You know, racist, fascist. I mean, you go through the list. Those things have all been said. Of course, we also get it from the other side too. You know, when they say that we're guilty of treason, a crime punishable by death, or they call us domestic terrorists. Although, you know, maybe the worst thing that we've ever done is left a meeting room messy, right? You know, they just say some of the most horrific things. I can think back to when we did TEXIT in Waco, and that guy from, I can't even remember what rag he wrote for, but he basically tried to dehumanize all of the attendees at TEXIT. You know, that's just the kind of thing that they do, because it's easier if they can dehumanize it. That's why they don't refer to the child in the womb as a baby. They refer to it as a fetus, or, you know, they do these things that effectively dehumanize, and then it just makes it much easier psychologically for them. But, you know, at the end of the day, I don't know that dehumanization is necessary for them to hate and to kill. I think, you know, we saw it during the Bolshevik Revolution. You know, more Christians were killed in the period of the Bolshevik Revolution during the times when the communists took over Russia, than during the entirety of the Roman persecutions, right? So, it's not like they dehumanized them, right? They knew they were humans. They just didn't care. They just didn't care that they were humans. They wanted a society that said that there is no God, and these were people of faith, and so they had to be removed from society. That was literally their only crime. And so, when we see that sort of language coming from both Democrats and Republicans, I mean, look, this hate, it just doesn't know a party affiliation. But I can tell you, it really is concentrated in one party more than the other one. But I don't know that it really knows a party. I don't know that this hate, this evil, I think it will put on whatever jersey is necessary to exact its goals. It's just the reality of it. But Bruce is right. We need to be critically aware of the evolving hazard. So thank you for sending that in, Bruce. Okay. Let's go back into the email. I'll let Kara catch up on getting the questions in there. Let's go here. John says, this has been John Bolgiano. Hey, John. He says, this has been a rough week for us all. One of my favorite authors used the analogy of a thermostat to a switch in commenting on political violence. One side sees it as a dial, which can be turned up and down, ranging from protest to riot to murder. The other side sees it as a switch with but two settings: vote and kill them all. I pray, and that's a quote, so for you YouTube censors out there, I pray that switch doesn't get flipped. The result won't be the fantasy of neatly aligned forces arrayed in glorious battle, but a bloodbath which will make Bosnia, Rwanda, and the Middle East look like a weekend at Disneyland. This may be a good time for a review of the TNM's Code of Conduct, particularly Item 3. Members shall not advocate for or engage in the initiation of force or violence as an instrument of political change. And I thank you for that email, John. That is literally one of the things that I led off with tonight. Not only do we reject that idea that you cannot engage in the initiation of force or violence as an instrument of political change. Notice the key word there is initiation of force. We are not trying to tell people do not defend yourselves, but you must not initiate or advocate for the initiation of force or violence as an instrument of political change. That is the textbook definition of terrorism. And if you think that there aren't some prosecutors or law enforcement out there chomping at the bit, waiting for people on our side of the equation to do something like that, you were sadly mistaken. You got to remember, a lot of the establishment apparatus and infrastructure is still there, and they're looking for any reason they can. Look, if they will prosecute Mark and Jaleese Middleton for defending themselves from getting assaulted at the Capitol, or throw people. I mean, they were willing to throw people in jail for decades for literally walking into the Capitol. I mean, just imagine if one of us gets out there and says something that fits the definition of terrorism. And by the way, that's not just the federal definition of terrorism. That is the Texas terrorism statutes as well. I've reviewed those today. I wanted to make sure before I got on here tonight that I was very clear on what the legalities are in relation to that. Some people may say you can't, it's free speech, and it's like, well, that's fine. If that's the hill you're willing to die on, by all means. But for us, we want to get Texas independence. So that's good email, John. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Let's go take a look. Dusty asks, he says, do you think after all this political violence, Alberta might rather be their own country over joining the U.S.? They may want to consider it, but Dusty, this is something that I actually talked about, last week? maybe it wasn't the week before because that was a very special day. Maybe the week before that. But, Alberta doesn't get to jump to 51st state. They don't go from province to applying to join the United States. There's an intermediate step, right? And that's independent. So literally the only two options that will be on the ballot when they do vote on it are to stay in Canada or to become independent. Now, what they do beyond independence, that is another debate. But I think we're going to have to see how this all unfolds here. What is going to be the aftermath? That will obviously, anytime you have a debate, it's going to be a debate that is in the context of the present moment in which that debate is being held. And so, they're not independent yet. They haven't had a referendum yet, but they're on their way to a referendum. And I think that whatever happens after that referendum, if they do indeed vote for independence, if there is a significant push for applying to become a state of the United States, I'm pretty sure the current situation on the ground in the United States is going to factor into that. I would advise them, much like I would advise anyone else, if you are not in the United States right now, do not apply. Right? Don't do it. This part of go back to the conversation that I had with Javier Hernandez about Puerto Rico, right? That's a conversation that you can go find. It's one of the Texas News podcasts. But I think that at some point this is going to enter into it because, frankly, there is no, I don't know that there's a de-escalation here. I don't know about you guys, and I'm just speaking personally here, but I feel like there has been a crossing of the Rubicon. I mean, you know that something has shifted politically when in the same week that this happens, you have NASA effectively announcing that they have found what appear to be signs of life on Mars, microbial life, and nobody knows it. Nobody knows it. Nobody cares. There is a shift here. And, just as I was getting ready to come on here, the news broke about the shootings in Annapolis, Maryland, which, our head of protective services now, Dean, he told us that we were travel restricted for a while. So good thing I got a lot of ramen noodles, right? But we're travel restricted right now because there's no guarantee of security because things are, there is no alleged de-escalation. It's funny how the opposition who fires out this rhetoric all the time, right? I mean, they fire out this rhetoric. Isn't it amazing that when somebody follows through on their rhetoric that they all of a sudden want to link pinkies and sing Kumbaya? Well, let's have a moment of unity. Well, how about you don't go encourage your people to kill us? How about we start with that? We're not going to be unified because we cannot unify. We cannot live in the same political and economic union with these people. We can't do it. And we can have, I think we can probably have a larger conversation about freedom of speech. I think that conversation has to come with a discussion about responsibility, right? People love to quote the First Amendment to the Constitution, freedom of speech. They don't really like to quote the one from the Texas Bill of Rights, which says that you got the freedom of speech, but you also hold all the responsibility for what you publish. That's literally in our Bill of Rights. Okay. Anyway, I digress. Thank you for your question, Dusty. And I'm going to say this. I think this is actually, let me just say this as an overview of the questions that have come in tonight. I can tell right now that not a single one of you is concerned about this. You are not deterred by this. You are not dissuaded by this. If nothing else, I think maybe I see a renewed sense of urgency on the part of some of you. Maybe I'm misreading that, but that's what I'm saying. Maybe sound off in the comments and let me know. Okay, Leah asked this question. She says, how fast and what do we, the people, need to do to make Texas an independent nation? You know, I could, thank you for that question, Leah. I could play this clip that I actually, because I get that question a lot, I could play that clip and, you know, waste three minutes and just say, you know, I'll just go get coffee and let myself talk from weeks ago, right? But I'm not going to waste your time. Here's what I'm going to tell you, and I'm just going to be blunt, right? How fast? How fast do you want it to be? Because the speed in which we obtain our independence is directly related to the amount of time, effort, and resources people like you and me and everybody else put into it, times however many people do it, right? That's the reality of it. The more people doing more work and pumping in more resources shortens that time. When it's fewer, it takes longer. And that's just the bottom line. And what do you need to do? Look, I could go through and tell you every bit of the TEXIT blueprint, but it's too much for tonight. But what I am going to do is tell you your first step is you need to go to tnm.me and you need to register your support. That's your first thing. Then join, then get connected up locally. If there's not a local group, volunteer to organize one. You got to get stuck in every possible way that you can get stuck in. That's how we're going to get this thing done and how we're going to get it done sooner rather than later. So thank you for that question, Leah. All right. If you're just now joining us, which, oh yeah, many of you are. Wow. Okay. Those numbers went up. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to drop your question in the chat. And of course, super chats are active. If you're watching on YouTube, drop your question in the comments on this video. If you're watching on X, drop them in the chat on the video. And the same thing, if you're watching on Rumble, drop them in the chat there. Additionally, you can email your questions to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. And of course, we are unpacking and processing the events over the last, 36 hours. And, feel free to send comments as well. All right. This is from Lisa. Lisa asks, when we TEXIT, will everyone living in Texas become citizens just by virtue of where they are living? That is sort of a simple question with some caveats, Lisa, but here's the reality of it. Ultimately, citizenship will be determined by the government of an independent Texas, who is and who's not. There will be a component of that is decided during the negotiation phase, when Texas is extracting itself and has to enter into a negotiation phase. And it will deal specifically with the status of citizens of the United States living in Texas that are, not from Texas, and also with the status of Texans that are living in other states of the United States. There is a clear analog for this. We saw it after Great Britain triggered Article 50 during Brexit, and there had to be a long negotiation and conversation about that. But not everyone living in Texas just becomes citizens by virtue of where they are living. Not necessarily in the long run. It will ultimately be a factor of the government policy of an independent Texas, as well as what agreements are made during the negotiation phase. So thank you for that question, Lisa. Okay. All right, let's go back over here to email. Man, it feels like this. I mean, we're 35 minutes in already. Wow. Okay. Okay, this is from Texas Freedom Lover. Says, I'm beyond mad after yesterday's assassination. I would like to discuss how to legally shut down and bankrupt these news media outlets that have been fanning the flames of violence. I'm beyond done with the leftist Saul Alinskyite radicals and what they have done to this country. They need to be called out and shamed to the point of never wanting to show their faces in public again. That is So let me tell you this. So there was an article on the Texian Partisan News website about how the major newspapers in all major Texas cities are now basically owned from outside of Texas, right? The conglomerates have snapped them up, and the reason for that is ultimately they're going bankrupt on their own. I mean, they are, whether it's TV news or whatever. I mean, it's that they are effectively being replaced. But there is a necessity for us to support additional media outlets, right? To promote those media outlets like the Texian Partisan, things that are not part of that propaganda machine that's pushing this stuff out there. But look, this is a debate that I think is worth having, because what you're essentially saying here is that something needs to be done about these alleged protections that the press has. And I'm not particularly taking a side on this, right? I think this is a worthy debate for you guys to have, whether it's on social media or go to TNM Social and have it in the comments, right? But there are people out there that say that they're free speech absolutists, and to a certain extent, I agree. But I also see the other side of this, which is when you have a propaganda machine that is effectively aligned, that demonizes, that marginalizes, that uses this hyperbolic language. And I know this is going on, so I don't want any hate mail. But when they do that, where do they actually bear any responsibility? Or is the responsibility entirely on the person committing the act? Well, I feel personally that everyone is responsible for their actions, right? In other words, if we're talking legal responsibility, they are legally responsible for their actions and the things that they say, the things that they do. But in the court of public opinion, that's a different story. And I think each person is going to make their assessment about the culpability of these outlets that continue to pump this hyperbolic rhetoric, especially in light of what happened yesterday. I think there's going to be I think a healthy and robust debate on what happens when you have public figures that say that people are guilty of capital crimes, or when you have media outlets that continue to pound on the narrative that people are threats to democracy or traitors to the country, and what role does that sort of thing play? So look, I'm not gonna wade into that debate tonight. I don't have the time for it, nor do I have the mental or emotional bandwidth to deal with it. But I'm perfectly willing to watch it play out in the comment section on TNM Social. Right? Go to tnm.social. If you don't have an account, go register one. Somebody go post over there, and you guys duke it out. I want to see a raging battle, respectful, rational, right, between free speech absolutists and people that need to, that feel like there need to be some sort of culpability by these media outlets for creating this environment. I'm not going to wade into that debate tonight. I'm not going to. It is, but I will say that it's not a debate that is brand new. This is a debate that's going on for generations when it comes to the issue of freedom of speech. So there you go. All right. This is from Chris. Oh, thank you for the super chat, Chris. He says, whatever it takes, we have to be all in for Jesus and Texas independence, the black flag, no quarter, El Deguello. Yeah. Look, when it comes to what we do for Texas independence, look, it's independence or bust, right? Like I said, the last 36 hours have proven that this thing is headed to a place where we don't want to go. Look, I'll tell you guys this. I had a conversation with someone who is, from a policy perspective, probably my exact opposite, right? I mean, not on the self-determination. That's the thing that we agree on, right? But this person is well connected. And when I say well connected, I mean over there on the D team. And we literally agree on almost nothing when it comes to a policy perspective. We've backed different candidates, and we have a different worldview. on how we want to be governed, and we can still have a civil conversation. It's amazing how that works, right? But you know, I say that to say that we understand. This was from him as we were just meeting for the first time, and he said, "Look," he said, "I know where this road leads. If we don't relieve the pressure and agree to disagree and agree that we can no longer be governed under one system, then this goes to a really, really bad place." And we're seeing it in real time go to that bad place. That video footage should be seared into everyone's brains, right? This is the danger in delay. Every moment that ticks by that we are not advancing toward Texas independence rapidly is another chance for that sort of thing to happen. And I don't think any of us want that. I mean, I know some of these guys are out there LARPing for civil war on social media, and it's like, guys, you don't know what you don't know what you're asking for. You don't understand. Go look at what happened in the Balkans. You know, I mean, I literally talked about it in my first book, Line in the Sand. I literally talked about this. It's, you know, it's at the time I called it secession because I didn't know any better, right? But it's either you surrender, you secede, you become independent, or this thing balkanizes. It naturally degenerates to a place where, I mean, I don't even want to get into it, but this is where we're headed. Look, I mean, let me just do this. So I grabbed this clip, and I don't know how many of you saw this, but they were having a vigil for Charlie Kirk last night in Boise, Idaho. And you know, they're having a vigil. There's nothing shady. They're not, you know that if you think back to what happened with George Floyd, I mean, there would be cities on fire right now, right? Because that's how the opposition operates, right? But this was a vigil, and some guy comes through and he's yelling "F Charlie Kirk," right? And this is what happened.
This guy's gonna get fucked. Some guy.
Nobody got shot, but it's starting. You know, this sort of thing is happening. You know, so there seems to be no willingness to you know, face the facts on this. I mean, we literally, I told somebody the other day, look, we're at a point where here are the two options. Here are the two paths. We're at this fork in the road, right? And there are these two paths. And down one path we separate and we say, let these people go govern themselves, right? Let these folks just go govern themselves, do whatever they're going to do. Whatever happens, happens. We separate. That's down one path. The other path is these two ideologies continue their Punch and Judy show, because neither one of them will be content until one pushes the other into the sea. That's just the reality of it. They want to just literally, you know, that's where this escalates to. And so, you know, the adult proposition here is to agree that we cannot occupy the same space at the same time. We cannot be governed under one system. I don't want Gavin Newsom telling me how to live my life. And here's the thing: I don't want to tell Gavin Newsom how to live his life. That's the reality of the situation that we're in. That's the real adult choice to make, is to say, let them go. We'll do us, you do you. You know, we'll trade. Maybe we'll defend one another as long as you don't do something stupid, right? But you take your social experiment, you do whatever you're going to do with it, right? And for us, we do what we're going to do, and we see which one wins. But as long as there is this battle royale over who gets to hold the reins of power in Washington, D.C. to lord this stuff over one another, this is the kind of stuff, this is only going to get worse. You know, if the assassination of Charlie Kirk, if you think that's like something new, I mean, that's probably one of the most public things. Let's not forget, we have a federal government that burned to death 80 men, women, and children, right? Or assassinated their political opponents. You know, I mean, this is nothing new. That's the government. Now you're down into the individual level where they've weaponized a bunch of mentally deranged people to go out and try to kill people who believe like we do. So, you know, make your choice, folks. Okay, let's get over here. Man, I'm having to dig through these. Lots of thumbs ups and hearts. I'm not going to read them all out, but thank you, Gary, Jose, Amanda, Jimmy, Annie. Angelo says, was not a murder, it was an assassination. Correct. That's what I've been saying tonight. The DFDs said someone, well, okay, I don't know, but enough. It's time to protect ourselves. Angelo, you're correct. Janice says, yes, we never know who's next. Jay Sachs says, we're headed to a full-out civil war as the Democrats have been demanding from their base. A lot here. There's no way I can read all this. Suck it up, Buttercup. This is what they've been demanding, and we have let too much violence from the left. Now it's time. Okay. So Jay Sachs is very upset. JL says, although I may agree with you, this was a tragic death of a human being. I did not see eye to eye with his views. I will say that it is more tragic this person's death will be used for a political agenda and its gains. As far as what has been happening with Texas since I was born and raised in Texas, the problem is political, not social. My condolences to his family. You know, and that's the thing about it, right? You know, you have common decency here from JL, who says, look, I didn't agree with Charlie Kirk, right? I didn't agree with his views. I wasn't in line with the things that he said. That's fair play, right? We don't all have to agree on everything, right? But you know what you got here from jail is human decency. Look, my condolences to his family. You know, I mean, this is that you can have sympathy for someone, right? And you can say, look, I didn't agree with them, but I don't believe they should have been killed for saying it. And let's remember that that's what we're talking about here. Is that, you know, it wasn't Charlie Kirk was not assassinated over, you know, a debt to a bill collector, right? He wasn't assassinated because of a simple policy disagreement, right? He basically went to places and talked to people, and whether you agreed with them or not was irrelevant. He just wanted to have the conversation, okay? And he was killed for it. He was assassinated. He was murdered, okay? You cannot agree with him and still have compassion and for his family and his friends, the people that have lost it, and also look at this and condemn the act of violence over, you know, him just talking over the things that he said. It's just not the way it should be done. So, you know, jail's setting the example for those other people out there that are out there clicking their heels and saying that they're glad that he's dead. Okay, Mark says, I agree. Texas needs to become independent again. It must be done peacefully. No civil war is needed or wanted. Correct. Okay, Sarah wants me to listen to the work of Catherine Fitz. Don't get sucked into the fear and anger that will bring about civil war, martial law, loss of liberties. That's exactly, this is literally what we've been talking about for years. But thank you for your concern and your email. All right. Okay, this is from William. This is very long, so I'm going to have to try to summarize. To my wife and I, San Antonio is too overgrown, yet this doesn't seem to matter to corporations and politicians. I feel this growth is a kind of conspiracy plan by politicians such as Henry Cisneros and the Castro family. Am I just paranoid, or is there something truly concerning for everyone involved? Look, unrestricted growth here in Texas, unplanned and unrestricted growth leads to, a lot of problems. I talked about this. Marvin Nichols Reservoir. There was a conversation I had. I just did an interview for the Texas News Podcast with Daniel Hunt, who's running for state representative up in East Texas and in those rural counties. I mean, they're getting ready to get tapped out on their water to have it shipped to Dallas, Fort Worth. I mean, so there are consequences to those things, but I don't think you're paranoid. I think unrestricted, unrestrained, unplanned growth definitely is something to be concerned about. And I'm not suggesting that, we don't need to grow. But what I am suggesting is that you have to be conscious and thoughtful about it, because if you don't, then what you get is a bunch of chaos and a crumbling infrastructure that winds up imploding. Okay. Let's see what we got going on here. Okay. Dusty wants to know, when is the next available time that TEXIT could show up on the ballot? You've got some time, right? Probably after the next legislative session, but it could happen under the guise of a special session, right? Texas Independence Referendum Act could be passed by a legislature that's in regular session or one that's in special session. And so, it could happen at any time. It's just when the people build up that critical mass to force it to happen. Okay. All right. Let me check one more, and then it's going to be time to sign off. Troy wants to know, are there any plans for another TexitCon? Yes. Beyond that, I cannot share it with you because I don't know them. But there have been discussions after the last one was scuttled because of this venue problem at the Waco Convention Center, and it's a whole thing. I'm not going to go back into it, but we've had the conversation on previous, I think probably the beginning of this year, some of the episodes of Coffee Talk, sometime around there, we talked about this, or maybe the tail end of last year. I don't remember. Excuse me. All right, friends. Well, look, this is going to be a wrap, but before I sign off tonight, there's a lot of emails here that are just, I'm not gonna read them on the air because a lot of them are kind of the same thing, right? It's the same thing. And I go back to my earlier observation where I said I see maybe a sense of urgency in people. Look, there's going to be time for people to process what's happened. I mean, it's rare that you get a political assassination so widely disseminated in such gory detail. There's going to be a lot to process. We just, as Texas nationals, as people who believe in the freedom and independence of the nation of Texas, who want to see us politically, culturally, and economically independent, a new responsibility has been thrust upon us to be the sane people in the room. as usual, to reject the rhetoric of hate and fear mongering and gloom and doom, and instead exchange it for a very clear path forward. We have to be the people that are bringing hope to the hopeless, right? And there are a lot of people out there right now that are very hopeless, that are very angry, very confused, very scared, and they are looking for someone like you to bring them a light that they can see at the end of what could be a very long and dark tunnel. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to each and every one of us to make absolutely certain that we are as engaged in this fight as possible. I don't want to see any more Charlie Kirks. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to see political violence spilling over into our cities and our towns and our neighborhoods. I don't want to see it. I don't want to see any or hear this, I don't want to see, as the previous person wrote in, I don't want to see a civil war. But there is only so much one person can do. We can call out the signs. We can tell you that there is danger ahead. We can remind you what our forefathers said, that there is danger in delay. We can remind you also from that letter, in the words of the prophet, why halt ye between two opinions? Why are you stuck? Pick one and do that thing, right? I mean, those are things we can do. We can organize. We can give you resources. We can point you in the direction. We can help you find your why. But at the end of the day, it is all political powers inherent in the people. And as a people, you're going to have to make that decision about what you want, and how badly do you want it? Are you comfortable seeing more of what we saw yesterday? Because there is a cost for sitting down or standing down that you will always pay, right? When things get this dark, that may also be the price that you pay when you stand up. You may pay the price if you stand up and speak up and show up. But if you don't do those things, you sit down, you stand by, you shut up, you saw yesterday with 100% certainty what will happen. Are you willing to compromise your principles? Are you willing to give that up? Are you willing to go into hiding? Are you willing to play along? Right? Because if understand, they will eventually get to you. So that is the reality, my friends. I know that's probably not some uplifting message that you wanted to hear, but I think it should be a rallying cry. And maybe you are uplifted by it. I don't know, but it is the reality. And if there's nothing else, I've never sugarcoated this thing for you. I've never pulled any punches for you. This is just the reality of it. So you got a shot. You got an opportunity to do something real, to stand up, to speak up, to show up, to do the things necessary so that we don't have to have any more of what we had yesterday, right? We don't have to, that is not guaranteed for us if we go out and do the things we need to do. Maybe some of us, maybe me, who knows? And I'm okay with that. But what I'm not okay with is people going, you know what? This is option B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever it is for me, right? I got more important things to do. More important things than saving your family, saving your friends, saving your coworkers, saving your neighbors. You got more important things to do than that? Because what we are doing here is a matter of literally saving the lives of those people. And if nothing else, yesterday proved that with absolute certainty. So I look forward to seeing what each of you do from here on out. I know what I'm doing. You know what I'm doing. You see it. It's public, but I'm interested in seeing what you're going to do. Is this going to be a clarion call, a wake up? Is it going to be Now I'm motivated. Now I understand. Now I get what the stakes are, and I'm willing to go all in so that my kids and my grandkids and all these other people, they don't have to suffer that sort of fate? Are you willing to throw in and make this happen to avoid that fate for the people that you love? Are you willing to do that? I'm looking forward to, when I get off of here, to seeing what you're going to do. I know some of you are going to be absolutely and utterly amazing. I just know it. I believe it in my heart of hearts. So, friends, this is what I would like for you to do as we wrap this thing up. Oh, by the way, I need to do this. I need to thank our channel members. There you go, scrolling right across the bottom. Appreciate your channel membership. Thank you for being YouTube channel members. Let me just say this. You've heard me mention it a couple times tonight. If you want to carry on this conversation, if you want to have the debate over free speech absolutism, or you want to go in and just do the thing, right? Just get stuck in and get connected. Well, here's your first thing. Either go to the Apple App Store or Google Play Store if you're on Android. Search for TNM Social, or you can go to the website tnm.social and go join the conversation. Go connect with other people who believe, like you do, that Texas should be a free, self-governing, and independent nation state. And for those of you, let's do what we did last week. If you were listening to the sound of my voice, go over there right now and post something. Post something, anything. Hey, I'm here. I'm answering the call. Hey, I'm crossing the line in the sand. I'm here. I want to get started. Somebody will connect with you. Go start connecting with people. This is how we stay together, how we defend one another, how we protect one another, how we care for one another, is we have to first connect with one another. And TNM Social is a good way for you to start doing that. Additionally, I would encourage you, if you have not already, to head over to tnm.me/vote and pledge your support. Yeah, become a registered supporter. It doesn't cost you a single solitary dime. I mean, you can even just go to the main page on tnm.me and fill out the form, right? It's all the same thing, but register your support. That helps us stay in touch with you, helps connect you to the movement, and helps build our numbers, because, friends, believe it or not, there is strength in numbers. So it's time for you to stand up and be counted. Additionally, if you'd like to grab you some TNM swag, some branded merchandise, our logo, lots of TEXIT stuff, head over to TexianStore.com. Proceeds from the Texian store go to support the work of the TNM, and pick up your, look, be unashamed, unafraid, unabashed, be a Texas nationalist. I've got the TEXIT Now mug tonight. I don't have the Texian Partisan one, but you can pick up this bad boy right here. Right, you pick up this bad boy right here at the Texian store. Additionally, look, if you'd like to make a contribution, head over to donate.tnm.me. That will take you where you need to go to help us really get the resources that we need to get out there and reach more Texans. It's just the reality of it, right? So, look, I'm sure somebody will get on to me for not making an eloquent pitch, but honestly, if what I talked to you about for the last hour doesn't motivate you to put in your blood, sweat, tears, and toil, then honestly, there's nothing I can say here that will do any better, right? Additionally, thank you, whoever, for the earlier question about the media outlets. One of those you can start supporting immediately is start going over to the Texian Partisan, right? Head over to TexianPartisan.com, the official news site of the Texas Nationalist Movement. It's got all kind of cool stuff over there, man. It's lots of good news, lots of analysis, and definitely the place where you can go find news about the TNM, plus many, many other things of concern to people who love Texas independence. All right. Well, let me do this too before I end tonight. Today is the birthday of our twins, Caleb and Tyler. So happy birthday, guys! As I did for Regina. There you go. There's your cake. There's your random dessert. So happy birthday, guys! Very proud of y'all, and really, really, really hope you have a happy birthday. I think we're oh yeah, I think we're having dinner with them, right? Not tonight, obviously, but it's happening. Anyway, all right, friends, that is going to be a wrap for tonight. Look, if you've got questions between now and the next Coffee Talk, please drop them to coffeetalk@etnm.org. You can get them in early, or we would love for you to join us live every single solitary week. Look, spread the word, right? Like and share, spread the word. Let's get more people here. This is a conversation that we need to continue on with, but if I don't see you between now and then, go over there and be sure you watch the newest episode of the Texas News Podcast, my interview with Daniel Hunt, the showdown behind the pine curtain that's getting ready to take place, and drop some comments on there. In the meantime, friends, I will leave you as I leave you every single time we're together. Not my words, but the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.